and welcome everyone to another episode of the True Safety Podcast. I am your host, Apolonia Rockwell, and today I have a very special lady with me, Lisa Hallsworth, and she is really special. So she is a CEO and the Chief of Vision Officer at Rillea Technologies, and holy smokes, do I have a ball of questions to dive into. But first, I just want to get it started. How's your morning so far, Lisa?
Oh, I'm having a great morning. And actually, before we start, Apolonia, I'd just like to thank you for inviting me to speak. But also, I love what you're doing. And I love that you bring your whole self to this audience. I've listened to a few of your podcasts over the last few weeks, and it's awesome to hear about your children, your newborn, and being a busy mom with a toddler and a thriving business, and the awards that you've won. So I just want to ask, how's your family doing? How are you doing?
Oh my gosh. As you know, as you're a mom as well, I am tired. I have, that's my answer. It's funny. Some people, people say, how's your night, or how was the day? And I'm like, last night was rough. She was up, Goldie is her name, my 4-month-old. She was up at 3 a.m. this morning, would not go back to sleep. And I wake up, I go to the gym at 5:45. So I've been up since 3 is the answer.
Wow. Yeah. I really admire you because, being in Canada, when I had my children, I was able to take a year off maternity leave for each of them. And I wasn't running a business at that time, but honestly, I really admire women who, can get up every day and show up to work and still show up at home. And, so good for you.
Oh gosh, thank you so much. As you know, it's always a balance and a juggle, and I definitely feel not perfect at it, and I'm just trying to get through. But that's what I'm interested about your story too, is that, before kids, I should say, I just, I of course I admired women that worked, and I guess you don't know until you're there, right? Until you're actually balancing a family, until you're actually trying to, I like how you worded that, when you're showing up at home and you're showing up at work, and just this balance. I feel like oftentimes guys don't get asked as much. How are you a dad and working? I don't feel like I hear that question. Like, wow, how do you do it? It's usually like women are like, how are you a mom and you're working, and the transportation when they're older, like just all the things. So tell me about your family. I am fascinated about your story, and how did you even get into this line of work? How did you even get into safety? And also, I have to say, Lisa, everyone was featured on the Canadian Occupational Safety Magazine's Top Women in Safety for 2021. I mean, whoa, that's just, it's so inspirational. So tell me about your story. How'd you get into it?
Well, I've done a lot of thinking about that. A lot of people ask me, how did I get here? And really, you have to look back at the dots like that connected you to get here. And funny, my story is a bit similar to yours. I think you had indicated that you, in grade 3, you had a friend whose dad didn't make it home. For me, I was in grade 11, and it was actually one of my friends who didn't make it home. He was just visiting for the day at the local pulp and paper plant, which is also where my dad worked.
Wow.
And kind of the mainstay for this small town on the east coast of Canada. And that day, they experienced a massive explosion, and 5 people died. And the explosion was as a result of a chemical explosion. An acid was accidentally mixed with a base, and the resulting explosion, powered through two walls and instantly killed two workers. But there were three workers who were in the facility. They were upstairs in the facility, and on their way down, they breathed in the toxic gas that was released in the explosion. And so they were initially sent to the local hospital. And my mom happened to be working the gift shop that day. And she was talking to my friend, and she said, like, he seemed totally fine.
Oh
But
my
of course, he wasn't
gosh.
fine. His lungs were, burning. And a few hours later, he was dead, and the other two people were dead. And so,
Oh my
when
gosh.
you experience a loss like that at a young age, and it's visceral, it's like it really makes you intuitive about the things that the unseen things that can harm you, like electricity and chemicals. And so it's kind of funny that I went into chemical engineering. But from day one, I was very much aware and had a huge amount of respect for the chemicals that we were working with the equipment that we were designing to carry those chemicals. And it was just a huge need for me to be passionate about making sure that we were overseeing the health and safety of colleagues and the folks who were working with these chemicals.
Oh my goodness. And was it the same? First of all, I'm so sorry that you experienced that. It's something that'll mark you forever, clearly. And were you mentioning that was it a friend too, that it was that your friend's father who was in that incident? And
No, it was my friend.
it was actually oh, at
Yeah,
such a young age.
he was only 20 years old, and he was touring the facility that day as a potential place to work. He was
Oh my
just in the
gosh.
wrong place at the wrong time. He wasn't even a worker there. Yeah, it was
Oh
horrible.
my
And he was just
gosh.
one of these people he was well known by the community, great hockey player,
Oh
really
my God.
nice. Yeah. Yeah, it was really sad. It was a
Oh.
tough loss to the community. And the one of the other workers as well was from my small village. He had three children, left his wife, and so she's part of our church. She was part of our church growing up. So it was really there all the time. Like that
Yes.
loss was kind of felt on a continual basis.
Yes. And for a long time, I feel like that's what stuck with me the most, was seeing the aftermath. There
Yeah.
was the time, the moment, the funeral, the emotions, those intense initial feelings, but little did I know it was the aftermath was
Yeah.
what was going to rock my world. Because I mean, still to this day, it's still a family who lost their father in the
Yes.
accident. And just, I hear what you're saying there. I mean, he was a kid, and the kids, and also the other gentleman who was lost in the incident, his children. And we're a big hockey family too. My little brother plays hockey a lot, and that's my family's world. So, oh my gosh. Well, so that brings you that doesn't bring you to today, but certainly that got it started in your mind, that got safety on your mind and your radar. So you went to school and specialized, you said, in chemical engineering, right? And so
Yes.
then what part of the program really drove you into safety? How did it go? How did it go from there to a safety career?
So I graduated from the University of Waterloo and went on to work in refining. So I
Okay.
worked in a refinery for a couple of years, and of course, you're surrounded, right? Refineries are pretty dangerous places to work. I think
Yes.
you're familiar with those as well. There's chemicals all around you. There are, things that can really go wrong. So you just have a ton of training and a constant awareness of, some facilities are painted. So if the paint changes color, you need to run. Things like that, right? You're hyper aware of all the potential things that can go wrong. So it was ingrained in everyone. The safety culture in those refineries was ingrained in everyone. And then I went on to work with DuPont, and they, of course, have a huge safety culture. I was a contractor with them. They're a very generous company. They send you on all kinds of training, whatever you need the tools that you need to do your job. I had whatever I needed, and they have a chief safety officer. They had at that time a chief safety officer. So safety again permeated in every part of the work of facilities. And so you just, I already had a passion for it, and it was honed in over 23 years of just getting more and more skills, more and more ability to be involved with process safety analysis. We were on big teams initially, and initially I was participating, and then I led many teams with process safety analysis. And what I saw over and over again was I really wondered how people safely manage chemicals, because I saw how the large companies that I'd been involved with, had put so much energy and resources into managing chemical safety. And I knew that small organizations probably didn't have those resources. And so I started, as technology started to evolve, a lot of my work was very repetitive. So I wondered, there must be a way to build software, to build this knowledge into software so that you don't have to have, really hire a real expensive, expert. You can get, the software can help to lead you through to the right conclusions, kind of thing. So when I started asking around small organizations, they don't have the resources, and really they don't manage chemical safety at all. And so that's when I left, and we started building software. We started to try to build our expertise into the software so that people could then use the software and be nudged kind of along in the right path. And if you think about like chemicals, and we think about that risk triangle that you usually see in safety, right? You get your near misses, and then you get your medical case and your accidents and your deaths. And the theory is that if you reduce your near misses, then obviously you lower the opportunity to have something catastrophic happen. But in chemicals, if you can't see them, how do you identify your near misses? So we help people do that with data. So we pull the data out of your HAZCOM sheets, or for us it's WMIS sheets, and organize that into categories like, what are your urgent hazards that typical safety programs don't cover? What are your occupational disease hazards? And we put that at the fingertips for the employer. And once you know what the data tells you, now you can start to see, okay, I didn't realize we were using that fatal if inhaled chemical. Maybe we'll find a safer solution or eliminate it, so that that doesn't become a medical case, or it doesn't become a catastrophic failure. Right?
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh, so many things are running through my mind. I'll start from the beginning. One, I'll go back to, do you feel that through your career and with your early start, with the experience that you had with this fatality that just hit such close to home in your community, do you feel like going through your classes and your training and your schooling that you had a different lens on safety, and your whole, I could only imagine you know, starting out in this career, and you have this burning passion. Maybe it wasn't as intense as it was today. Maybe it was, but you have this burning passion, and your colleagues that maybe are getting into safety, they were there for safety, but it was just a different reason for you. Did you ever feel that?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, just even working with some colleagues, I would think, well, we're working with carcinogens here. We need to be really cautious about this. And I felt like everybody wasn't on the same page. And it took me a long time to actually understand why that was. For me, it was visceral. Like it's tangible when something like that happens early in your life. If you don't have that experience early in your life, it's just like, oh yeah, that might happen. Cancer's everywhere. That's not going to happen to me, right?
Yeah, and I could see that on the employee side of the employees that you're working alongside with, but then also even fellow colleagues in the safety department, or people that are, in the same career path as you as far as safety. But I felt like when I started, there were people interested in safety, and there were safety professionals, but they were more compliance based. They were more,
Yes.
And compliance is important, and process is extremely important. But there was the whole people side of things that no one can take that experience away from you that you felt. I mean, you saw the emotions on the gentleman with the 3 kids. You saw his wife at your church, and the kid, his parents. I feel like you probably have always had a people approach above all when it came to safety. And I feel like a lot of safety professionals, they don't get it quite yet. I don't know if you ever felt that.
Oh, for sure, for sure. And that's in the safety profession. When you're looking for safety leaders, I think it is really important to look for those people who do have a passion for it. To quote Simon Sinek, he says, "People don't buy what you do; they buy why you do it." Right. So if your passion comes from a place of really caring for whatever reason, maybe you've experienced violence, or you've experienced your backgrounds in ergonomics, or whatever it is, right? Whatever your passion is, if you have that passion, that's a great place to start in a safety leader.
Yeah.
But then you have to give the safety leader tools.
Yes.
I mean, I've heard safety leaders referred to as superheroes. And I really don't like that term, because that puts a lot on people's plates, right? You put a lot of obligation on people's plates. Really, I think of safety leaders as coaches, and you need the right tools, and either a coach or like an orchestra conductor, right? You're just directing people. You're getting them the tools that they need and the knowledge that they need. But it's a discussion. You're the kind of the conduit. The safety leader is kind of the conduit between the safety performance of the company and the leaders, right? What do the workers need to work safe? What knowledge do they need? What tools do they need? How do we see things that we can't see with our eyes? How do we get that data that we need to make good decisions, and decisions that make sense from a safety perspective?
And I have never heard that perspective worded the way you just framed that up. And I loved it. Was that you're right. People oftentimes, I hear it and I see it all the time too. Safety will take care of it. They're the super humans. They're the superhero. You figure it out. Hey, we have an incident. Oh, take care of this, please, and make sure everything works out for us. Make sure that production keeps rolling. And you're right. Is that safety cannot just be a part of the safety department's roles and responsibilities. And I know you've worked with amazing companies that did have a great safety culture. And you've probably seen a lot of companies that were complete opposite, but seeing them both, I'm sure you saw that the thriving companies, they all embrace safety. It wasn't just the safety person's responsibility. And I like how you talked to the stress that a safety manager, a safety professional has on their backs, because they're thinking, all right, if an incident happens, it's on me. If we have a bad record, it's on me. If we're doing great, it's on me, but I have the pressure to keep it going. And how do I do that with hundreds of employees? How do I do that with thousands of employees? Yeah. And technology, we're so sync, because I just feel like early in my career, I knew the same thing that you were picking up on, that you picked up on, was that technology is a must. There's only so much a safety professional can do with it. Even a small, medium-sized company, where does that data go? How can we get proactive instead of reactive? And I feel like that's your philosophy. That's what your software allows companies to do, is to stay in that proactive zone. Is that right? Absolutely.
Yes. How do you see what chemicals can cause cancer in your organization, what reproductive toxins you have those discussions with people, make sure that you're protecting those people from harm. I mean, today, we have like 7,500 people die each day around the world just from going to work, and 6,500 of those die from occupational disease. I mean, that's shocking.
That is shocking. That is so shocking. Yeah.
Yeah. And higher numbers in the Western world, because we actually are using lots of sophisticated chemicals for all kinds of different reasons. Yeah. So it's not just exposure to chemicals, but exposure to chemicals is a big part of it. And it's something that we can't see. Often our bodies are not able to either taste or smell or see what's in the air, right? At levels that can harm us. So we have to be able to have that data in order to prevent those exposures. You have to have the data to see that it's a potential, and make sure that you're protecting people.
What inspires you today? I mean, this is a huge mission in life, to really to dedicate a big chunk of your life to making sure, trying to bring workers home safely and in the same condition that they left their families that morning, their homes that morning. And so what personally inspires you today? What do you love to do? There's, under the safety umbrella, I think there's safety process creation, there's training, there's the coaching, the mentoring, the one-on-one with employees. There's so much. What do you personally love doing now?
Well, I love doing things like this. I mean, I think it's amazing that you are democratizing safety, that you're making it so easy for everybody to access the information, to learn in such a simple way. And COVID has really pushed us along on that. And I love when, talking with our clients, when they come back and say, wow, we didn't realize we had, all these hazards, and maybe it's a college, right? And we've eliminated 300 products from our campus. Thank you. And that always brings me to tears. Like, I just think, oh, wow, that we were able to inspire that. Is such an amazing thing. And we've worked with like policymakers, like Health Canada, where we're able to pull some data together for them to help them with their decision making. And wow, that's amazing, because the thing about software that's so powerful is that you can mentor people not only today and not only in your organization,
Yeah.
but you can pass along your expertise to people in the future, people outside your organization. And that's pretty sweet. Like, that's pretty motivating. It's
Oh
pretty,
my gosh, it's life changing.
yeah.
It really is. The software, the technology, the purpose behind it all is actually life changing. And I feel like with a mission so big on your heart and with such a big purpose, I'm sure not every day is perfect, but I mean,
No.
gosh, just to keep driving and moving forward with the cause that big. I always feel like that. I feel like the purpose needs to be big to get people motivated and excited and, willing to get behind something. And that's exactly what your company's up to. That's exactly what you're a part of. And so I have a question. I know, so you've worked with some huge companies, not just the small ones, but what have you seen work with safety culture and getting people motivated? So when it comes to safety, so one of my philosophies, if you haven't heard it in the podcast, is that I feel like there's not a safety culture, and I'm so guilty of talking about safety culture, and sometimes that'll come out of my mouth. But when I really think about it, I think that companies just have a culture, that it's a culture of excellence or it's a culture of no accountability. Like what is it? I don't feel like there's an accounting culture and an operations culture and a safety culture. I think companies just have a brand. They just have things that they tolerate and what's allowed, what's accepted, what risk is accepted there. And so with the companies that have really seemed to get it, what are those key things that those companies have that you can maybe share with listeners that are like, I'm working at, maybe a mom and pop shop, or we're working with a few hundred employees and I'm just having hard with the buy-in. What do excellent companies do? What's it look and feel like to walk inside one of those buildings and talk with their team?
Well, I think you're right on the money with culture. I mean, culture is just what we call the characteristics that our organizations use to enable people to, achieve their goals. And one of your previous speakers talked about Maslow's theory of needs. And so I'd like to just give you an analogy of a sports team, because that's what most people can relate to, right? So, a sports team wants to achieve success, right? The success, and they want to win their games, they want to win the championship, whatever. But in order to do that, you have to attract great talent, right? And so to attract that great talent, you need to have a certain number of things in place in your organization, and it's no different in a business. The first thing is that, you need to pay them reasonably well. And that gets to that bottom layer in Maslow's theory of needs, where your players, you don't want them worried about, feeding their families and housing their families and themselves and keeping them safe. And then the next thing you need to do is have the proper equipment, right, for your people to play or work safely. So whatever that equipment is, you'll often see sports teams have the best of it. They have the best of it because they know if their players get hurt, they're out of the game and they're not contributing to the goal, right? So the physical safety, huge. And then the next thing is psychological safety, right? That team. Can I trust my team? Can I trust my player to be there when I make this amazing pass? You have to the coach has to build that into their team. They have to be able to talk about things and bring their whole selves to work. So that, if they're worried about their wife who's just had a baby, it's hard for them to bring their whole selves to work, and maybe they need to be able to take time off. So feeling safe to talk about things like that, and then giving them the tools. So we know that sports teams have the best psychological sports therapy and all kinds of things just to
program, something that they could even get involved with inside the organization to keep them learning and growing is kind of what I hear you saying.
well, yes, that, and also like the right encouragement, right? So if your coach is always just saying, telling you all the bad things that you're doing, you don't know what the right thing is. So if you're getting that direction from your coach and saying, yeah, this was really good, more of this, and that worked really well, and that worked really well, and yeah, you can give some constructive feedback. But if what you're mostly getting is positive feedback, now you feel confident, and now you go out there and you do your job, the thing that that nobody else can do as well as you, right? You're part of that team, you have the confidence. And business is the same thing. When you work in a company where you have safety is so important from the top, that it's integrated in every part of that business, and it needs to be for the human needs, right? Feeling safe is actually a need before you can reach that self-actualization or be the best that you can be.
My gosh, that is something that I'm going to be listening to over again on this podcast. I'm going to go back and listen to this and take some notes, because I think you said that beautifully. And I think that that message is so needed to be heard right now, while there's this employee shortage, as there's this labor shortage, and everyone is wondering, how can I take the business to the next level? How can I be a part, if you're a part of the safety committee, you're the safety director, is how do I help go to the next level? And everything that you listed there is something that we all need to note and really take seriously, because you might think, I'm just the safety department. How can I really contribute towards the overall health of the organization? And you just heard it, everyone, from Lisa right here, is that safety is a key need that employees need, not just want, but they need it to feel secure, feel safe, to thrive in an organization. And when everyone is on that same wavelength of health, safety, security, and they're getting all their needs met, that you have in return, hopefully, a longer retention at the organization. Exactly. And then you all as a group, as a community inside that company, go to the next level and achieve greatness.
Yes.
So that is huge. Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Retaining those employees, right, is key. You put a huge amount of energy into training your employees, and you want them to stay.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And sometimes it's not money. That we saw that during COVID, right?
We did. You're exactly right. I think this message is golden. This is key. This is an episode I'm going to be re-listening to, because that is phenomenal advice, and it applies to every single one of us, whether you're an owner, supervisor, in safety, within the company, no matter who you are. This is great advice to take it to your company. So I just looked at the time, and I can't believe I am close to ending with you. I've taken up all your time, and I want to respect the time frame that you've given me today. So I just want to end it on, do you have any final thoughts for the listeners that are, passionate about safety like you and I? They maybe, they're just in that rut, maybe just needs, a little piece of inspiration. Is there any advice you'd give any safety professionals right now?
I would say you must be exhausted. I feel that you're exhausted. COVID has been on your doorstep, banging on your door over and over and over again. But take heart in all of the great things also that COVID brought. There's some really great tools. The fact that you and I can speak today would really not easily have happened pre-COVID. And there are tools, software tools that you can look to help you lighten your load, make your load easier, make your sharing within your company easier. I think COVID has brought safety to the forefront for many companies and help them understand that it is necessary, it is a need. And so that has, created a foundation from which you can build going forward. Once you rest, take some time to rest and regenerate, and then hopefully build on going forward.
What I just heard there is, everyone, Lisa knows her audience. You spoke straight to my soul. Oh my gosh, as a safety professional, you spoke to my heart there. And I know many other listeners are feeling exactly the picture that you just painted, that they are climbing out of a hole with COVID. They're looking at, we're still dealing with the after effects. How do we build a culture? How do we get people motivated, excited? How do I improve our overall safety program in this new workforce that we're working with? Yeah. And I can't chant this message enough. It's 2022. Let's invest in some software. Let's invest in some technology that can make our lives easier, and most importantly, make our workplaces safer by getting into this proactive zone. Guys, we're not a one-man show. There's tools out there now that can help us as safety professionals. I'm a big believer in software. So I just thank you. We will link Lisa's contact information so you can get a hold of her if you have any questions about this software. We're going to get a link to the website itself so you can look at the bells and whistles and the features and really understand, what the heck are you talking about? Talking about software, make my life easier? What is this? So we will link Lisa's contact information. But thank you so much today for such a easy, breath refreshing conversation. You're phenomenal, Lisa. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And I think you're phenomenal as well. I think what you're doing is amazing, and you have a great platform, and I'll continue to listen. As I've learned a ton already from listening to your podcasts and really enjoy them, always enjoy them. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. This conversation was so enlightening. You're so inspiring. So, well, thank you, everyone. I can't wait to talk to you again, Lisa. I want to stay connected with you. And everyone, you heard it here. So thank you for listening, and we will tune in next time. We'll talk to you soon.